Coach Mofield Show is brought to you by the Kentucky Land Company of Irvington. If you're looking for a little slice of heaven to plant your flag and call your own, give them a call at 547-4222 or check out their webpage at ky-land.com. Hello, GreenWave Nation, and welcome back to, I can't believe it, week 3 of the Coach Mofield Show.
Going by fast.
How you doing, Coach?
Good, Chad.
You know, we talk about this every year, but it's just one minute you're waiting for the season to start. Now we're going into week 3. So I guess we'll start off with E-Town. You know, we talked about, you know, the first week didn't quite go the way we wanted it to, but first weeks are always a little funny anyway because it's the first time you're full game speed. But I can't help but think that you're pretty pleased with the way things turned around last week.
Yeah, I think there's areas of the game. I thought our special teams were much better. Coach Trotter really did a good job of lining those things out. And again, you know, I said this last week, it looked like during the course of that first game that was a glaring weakness. And we did make some blunders there, but we also made some blunders defensively and offensively too. So it's a shared part of our game. We're all in it. So, but I thought he did a nice job. I think I also said this last week. Our offense at this point in the year has got to kind of carry us, I think, because it's the most veteran group. And you know, we have 8 or 9 kids back on that side of the ball. They played last year. You know, we replaced one offensive lineman and maybe a slot receiver, or we replaced Bennett and a quarterback / wideout. But you know, you got 9 kids with experience, and so we knew our offense has got to carry us a little bit. And defensively, we're still getting there. And their quarterback, E-Town's quarterback, really played well Friday night. It was hard to tell exactly what they didn't have to do a lot of stuff against Fairdale. And I say that because Fairdale plays a defense that's man, and they bring constant pressure. So having that film was not a film that you can really base your game plan. It was hard to base your game plan off of it because E-Town did some things that they did not do against us, and they were very successful against Fairdale because Fairdale was playing I call it the confusion defense. Bob Redmond kind of made it famous when he was at Male. You basically blitz all the time and you play man coverage. It's easy to coach because that's what you probably work on tackling. That's about it. So, but you give E-Town credit. Coach Magna did a great job having them prepared. You know, the other thing is I also think that some nights things go your way, and man, I don't think they had a drop ball all night. If their incompletions may have been a quarterback overthrow or something, but I don't remember one pass they dropped. I mean, they caught everything. Number 3 out there, the wideout, I mean, everything that was thrown to him, he caught. And but they played really well, and we finally got going. We came out a little slow, and I'll take responsibility for that. I think, you know, we get over there and the heat was not an issue, but I think it was an issue from how you go out and how you don't wear your pads, and you go out there and try to stay cool as you can until it's time to play. So, but that's not an excuse. We got to come out. We got to be ready to go, and but I thought overall it was pleasant from a standpoint of our kids never quit. Our defense rose up on about 2 or 3 occasions when they had to do it the most. You know, they had a huge stand there at the end, and that was big. And then we took it, I don't know, 60, 65 yards, I'm guessing. I don't know the exact yardage for a touchdown. A big play in all that was the punt from Aiden Bratcher. I think Cletus and I talked about it yesterday. I think it was 55, 60-yard punt, close to it. That flipped the field. And then our defense rose up, and we get the ball back, and then we win the game.
Well, and I was going to say, because to me, you know, you preached this when I played, Coach French preached it, everybody preached. One play don't beat you, one play don't win.
Right.
But I that was what I was thinking was there were some big plays on all units.
Yeah.
But especially for the special teams, kind of took a little black eye in that first game, and not only did they come back, like you said, and played phenomenal, but he had some good punts throughout the night. There wasn't no shanking or nothing. He was getting his time, but that last punt, because the best I remember, we were like on our own, somewhere between 20 and 10 yard line.
Yeah, it was pretty. I was trying to. I'm not always a big stat guy, Chad. I can tell when we flipped the field. I don't know exactly how far it was. I just know it was AB's capable of kicking them 50, 60 yards. Now, he's also capable maybe hitting one off the side of his foot, but most of the time he hits them really well. He's a weapon back there. He gets the ball off fast. I also got to say that Isaac Mangin is a sophomore, and he's our long snapper. And he's had a couple that he's one hop back there, but I'll tell Isaac this. I said it's better to one hop him if you're and have worse, and then snap one over his head.
Yeah.
So, and AB's athletic enough, but Isaac's done a good job. A sophomore, it's a tough spot to be in.
Oh yeah.
You know, in high school football, they cannot hit the. Not probably at any level, you can't drill the snap, which is fine. Is great because he's in a vulnerable position. So, but you still got to come in there and get it back there, and that was a crucial part of the game, and that was a good snap. So yeah, overall I thought our kids really battled to the end, and they found a way. You know, we gave up that one touchdown right before the half that I thought was a momentum stealer that we've got to do a better job. You know, I think they end up scoring on fourth down. We almost held them, but we didn't. You know, but we've got to, on those pooch kicks, you really got to get them in spots. And sometimes if you, and I'm sure there's people out in the stands will know why we don't kick it deep. Well, a lot of times if you kick it deep, that just means that they've got a better chance of returning it. You know, you really, in space sometimes we don't do as well. So we try to put it in a spot. A lot of teams do that. We're not the only one. We put it in a spot, and Nolan at times can really hit that spot. But if you don't hit that spot, it ends up being a little bit longer. Now you've just created a potential long kickoff return.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. And you know, that punt, people take for granted that if you don't know the game, you know, we talked about it earlier in the season that, you know, a third of the game is special teams.
Right.
And like for those that weren't there, like it felt like it was another momentum stealer because we get up one, they tie. We get up one, they get tied, and then like it's getting down to the final minutes, and they held us.
Right.
And held us deep.
Right.
And I thought, they're going to get the ball at midfield. Yeah. You're at their house. They had a full crowd. It was going crazy, and I just can't brag enough on that punt because that literally went from, it looked like they were going to have a short porch to get to the end zone.
That is a time when, Chad, I think you can say, you look at the end of that game, our defense rises up to the occasion. First of all, our special teams rose to the occasion. Then our defense rises up to the occasion, and our offense rose up. When you needed it the most, those three phases of your game, and that's really what coaches sometimes we nitpick. The longer I've done this, the more I realize at the end it's either a W or L, and you like to have a whole lot more W's than L's. So, it's hard to win. So instead of nitpicking every phase of the game, obviously we want to correct mistakes and stuff, but you also want to celebrate a win because you need a win. It was kind of like to me at a playoff game, you need a win. Yeah. No matter how you get it. If it's 2-0, if it's 3-2 or 10 whatever, we got to win. So that was exciting. Our kids, I think, it's good because it kind of validates what you're doing, because you go out there and football is hard. You practice a long time, and we have some kids that play both ways, and so our kids, we can't go out and have a 2-hour offensive practice and then the other half of the team have a 2-hour defensive practice. We can't do that. If you could do that, but we can't do that. We got kids that play both ways, and so we practice long. They work hard at it, so it kind of validates what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the offense being where most of your experience is, and I was sitting there looking at the stats, and you look at Cade had a great night, 276 yards passing, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
White had a great night running. Wren had a great, running back, I think White was just short of 100 yards, had a rushing and receiving touchdown, punched the game winner basically in. Yeah. And then, the receiving core, Branson kind of led it. With 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, I was kind of thinking, like, where's the kudos to the offense? And it takes a whole team, but, we're right back where we was last week. It really shows it's not a fluke.
Right.
Them linemen.
Right.
I looked, and they had what they had down was they had 1 sack.
Right.
And 1 tackle for loss.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we're playing. That's probably an unsung group of on our team right now. Those 5 up front are really playing well. And I mentioned Dylan Tucker, I think, last week. He's come in as a junior and kind of solidified us at the center spot. And we challenged him over the winter. We always knew he had a lot of potential. We challenged him, and to get with it in the weight room, and he finally kind of balled in. He put on some weight, and he's smart. He knows what to do, and so he's helped us. And then you got 2 juniors beside him. You got Backer Robinson at the left guard, Jesse Bevan at the right guard, and you got Ethan Spencer at the right tackle, and you got Thomas Fox at the left tackle. But those 5 have really, and linemen have to be a little bit different. It's just nothing can happen good typically without them playing well. And I say this all the time. I don't care how fast your back is, how good your quarterback is. If they don't get any blocking up front, we're not going to be very good, because you can only run around, scramble, and make so many plays before eventually it catches up with you if you're not very good up front. So we're bigger up there than we've probably been in years. I mean, we got probably 280, 290, 240, 300, and then our left tackle's our smallest kid. He's probably 215, 220, Thomas Fox, but he's also one of the toughest kids I've ever coached. I think I think Thomas would if you lined a grizzly bear across the line from him, he's probably going to try to pancake the grizzly bear, and so that's the kind of player he is. So I had to tell him in practice, I said, save it for Friday night, because he's got some of those sophomores and juniors that are on a scout team, just pounding. I said, come on, save it for Friday night. I said, I'll let you do that to E-Town or to Henderson County, but don't, save us a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think they've done a good job, and I thought, we had another big play in the game was at the very end when AB gets the sack.
Oh yeah.
We've kind of gone to a package that we call where we put a couple of guys in there. We've never been, and this is the reality. We've never been real adept at rushing the passer. Even if we get depth and put pressure on the quarterback, sometimes we can't make those sacks, and because we got 3 or 4 run stoppers in there sometimes, and then when you have to transition, so Coach Scott has packaged a group of kids that can go in there and put some heat on now obviously they could still run a draw or a screen or something, but I think we're okay with that, because now if you put those I say a little bit more, kids are a little bit more fleet of foot, they're able to run down those screens and whatever. So we did the things we had to do to win the game. It was a really good high school football game. Obviously, some team has to lose, and I've been on enough of the other end of those where we've lost before. Henderson County was a pretty good high school football game. We came on the short end of that stick. So, but E-Town's got a good team. Tyler's done a great job over there, and they'll only get better. And he's one of the bright young coaches, rising coaches in the state, and I think for him long term that's a good job, because their numbers will stay down. They'll stay at 3 or 4A, and they go out of their district. This year they're a really tough district, and then it eases up a lot. So I think for E-Town, he's got them going in the right direction.
Yeah. And then, and that was kind of the good thing to see too, was that it was all phases were fine. I'm sure
Right.
you all got on tape and you're like, we could have
Right.
done this better, but
Right.
we controlled the turnover game this go around. Braden got his second interception of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know, did we have a turnover? Or we had 1 fumble, I think.
I think so, yeah.
But the first week they had 3.
Right.
We gave up 3
Right.
and only had 1, so that
Yeah.
made a big difference. So, it really felt like the defense and the special teams stepped right in the gap there, and we're firing on all cylinders.
And that's kind of been a revolving door. Like, that's the other thing on special teams that people don't. It's like some things because you're on the inside, and some things people don't know because they're on the outside. But the special teams, it's an area, I mentioned this week 1, you try to get some of your starters off the field. And then sometimes with some of those younger kids, it's a revolving door. Sometimes they're not ready yet to perform. Other times, it might be an issue where if they don't come to practice or something, So it's it's kind of a revolving door. So we've ended up having to go back to some of those, like we put Wyatt in there back on the punt team last week as our protector. So we're just challenging some of our kids. Hey, it's as the weather starts to get a little better. Now Friday night it's going to be warmer, but it's not going to be as warm as it was in E-Town last week. But our conditioning I think is pretty good, and at times we don't, even though we don't huddle, we're not going at a torrid pace on offense. Now obviously at the end of the game or at the end of the half you go at what we call NASCAR. It's a lot faster, but we're not one of those where we're trying to get 75 plays in or 80 plays in a game. We're not trying to set records, to that, because now if you platoon, you might be able to do that, but it kind of works both ways, because some of those guys are playing. A lot of I call them little skill guys, are playing offense and defense. It's our big boys and that might be another thing I think, back to what you said. We're able to rest some of these. We're able to rest some guys up front, and that's really where it makes a difference. We can spot play Ethan Spencer on defense. We can spot play Jesse Bevan. Thomas now hardly ever comes off the field, but we can also get him out on the offensive line with Landon Williams, and we can occasionally spell him on defense. But he's a kid that's in pretty good shape, and we know when he's tired and we can get him out. But we're not having to play a lot of these guys both ways. And I think that the linemen
have the
makes a big difference. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess you're talking about the conditions for this week, and celebrated, but now it's time to put that one behind us and move on. And going down to Apollo this week, I was looking. It looked like first week Ocath got them 15-13, and then last week they come back and won 40-36 against McCracken. I guess one good thing is you got a couple weeks worth of, you was talking about, like, it's hard going into these last two with film. We scrimmaged Ocath, so you kind of know what their deal was. Does that help in?
Well, Ocath, I'm going to tell you, Chad, probably should be in the state finals. I don't know who will be opposite of them, but they probably got a darn good chance of winning it. They're outstanding. They could beat a lot of 6A programs, but so it's hard to tell with Ocath because they're so good. But the McCracken Apollo game was a shootout. I mean, it was kind of like a little bit like ours. It was almost like a 7-on-7 game. Last team with the ball wins, and they hit a couple of big plays there, Apollo, at the end of the game to win the game. And they have a receiver named Niles Board, number 1, who is unbelievable. He played down here last year, and he played running back, and he was good running back. And part of me thinks, well, at least at running back he can touch the ball potentially every play. But I think he's more dangerous out there in space, because you could bottle him up a little bit when he was a running back. You can't hardly bottle him up out there when they'll go trips, put him as a single receiver. They'll run. They'll throw screens to him. He plays safety on defense, and he makes a lot of plays. He's a tremendous athlete. I think he ran a punt back, or I know he ran a punt back. He ran a kickoff back, and he ran a screen pass for a touchdown against McCracken. So he's responsible for 3 scores, and so he's a heck of a player. We'll have to find a way to. You're not going to stop him. You just try to contain him as much as you can, and then you got to get a couple of breaks. You got to make some breaks. You got to do maybe a tip ball here or there, and then it goes back to putting some emphasis, or I don't want to use the term pressure, but our offense has to step up. 2 years ago we go down there, and I think it was 55-54. We miss a 2-point conversion at the end of the game that could have won the game. It could be like that. Obviously that's not what you want as a coach. You don't want to give up 50 points, but you also know that Apollo is hard to stop. Their quarterback is outstanding. He's just a sophomore. He was a freshman last year. He came in at the end of the game last year, and you could tell when I was on the sidelines, I said, he's special. You can tell. When a freshman comes in like that and throwing darts all over the field, and so special. I think that their head coach, his son, Coach Edge, his boy was playing quarterback. Well, you know how people always say coaches favor, kids or whatever. Well, he put his son at linebacker or slot and put this kid in at quarterback because he realized that this kid was pretty dang good. But his son still is on the field. It's not like he's not. But this kid's really good. They got, they're solid. They're a lot like us. Their numbers are like us. They don't have 100 kids out there. So they've got several young kids on the roster like we do. So it should be a tremendous game. And I think, again, going on the road, we got to be ready to go on the road. We got to be focused. We have to come out ready to play. As a coach, sometimes you never know. We talk about this all the time. You remember when you were riding on the bus to wherever, you could hear a pin drop probably, before the game. And I think some players respond to that. I think some don't. I mean, it's a little bit different, just like a lot of things, I think. So I think there's a fine line. I don't think you have to. More of it's in the locker room for us. Looking back last week, I'm saying, were we focused enough in there? Were we too squirrely? So I don't know. It's a little bit longer bus ride this week, and so we'll have to come out ready to go. I think that's big for us to come out with some energy, and obviously that starts with me. Come out ready to play. And make some plays. I think there's some things that we probably can do more offensively. I think there's things we can do defensively. I think there's things we can do in the special teams. I can tell you this: we have to tackle well. We have to tackle well. I think we've got to maintain possession of the football. If you see Aiden Bratcher out there punting 4, 5, 6, 7 times, it's going to be a long night. There may be some times where we got to go for it. Because you got to maintain possession of the ball. And when I say that, we've got some kids that we can get the ball in their hands. We believe they can catch. We got 5, 6, 7, 8 kids that can catch football. And they got to make those plays.
Yeah.
So, but Apollo's got a good team. It's always tough when you go to Owensboro. So we'll have to really play well.
Yeah. Well, you hit on their offense, and that was just looking at the stats of it. It looked like they were a little bit more pass heavy. Their quarterback likes to run some.
Yeah, that's it. And I didn't say that. I'm glad you brought that up. He's a tremendous runner, and I tell you what he does. And I can tell you, Cade and I had this conversation, or I don't know if it was a conversation as much as it was think about this. We've obviously, and I don't care who watches this and says, we've obviously tried to protect him a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he came off that injury, and we need him out there. He's 6'5", 220, and can sling it, and he's our quarterback. So we're trying to protect him a little bit. So we don't have these design runs like last year. We had it cut our offense down to a certain extent, but that's okay because we can make up for that doing other things. We've short passes or whatever. But I told Kate, and he did this last week a couple times. I think a couple of them were called back on penalties. But it showed me that he's thinking about this. Take off. A lot of times he's savvy enough to get out of bounds. Mm-hmm. He's savvy enough. Slide. Now obviously if it's 3rd and 8 and you're at the 8, he's probably a competitor. He's going to want to get the first down.
Yeah.
But if it slide, get out of bounds, and he did that. And I told him the other day, I said, I'm just reminded him, hey, don't forget your legs. It's one of the biggest weapons, and that's the evolution of football in the last few years has been that mobile, extend the play type quarterback, and that's what E-Town's kid did. Yeah. He wasn't going to. Obviously he's a very good athlete. I don't know if he was a 4.4 or 4.5 guy, but I tell you what he did. He was savvy, and he got out of the pocket, and he extended the plays, and boom, they made a play. And those are the things that Cade can do. He can extend the play, he can step in the pocket, he can run. But the kid from Apollo likes to, we call it dash, sprint out game. And what he'll do is if you think you got the sprint out game because you've sealed the edge, he'll put his foot in the ground, go the other way. So we're telling our backside people, look, don't overcommit. You got to still be engaged on the play. Don't just think because the front side has formed a wall there that he won't cut back, and he's good. He's not afraid to lower his shoulder and run it too.
Really? So yeah. Well, because that's what I was looking at. Their stats are way heavier on the run or pass, but
Yeah.
he had about as much, if not more, carries and yards than the running back did.
And that's a big, now there's a, as I was, Cletus and I were talking yesterday, it's a risk reward on that.
Yeah.
It's a risk reward because, you especially if you don't slide or if you don't get out of bounds, and, and he's, I mean, not to disparage their backup quarterbacks or anything, but he makes them go. Kind of like with our offense.
Yeah.
Cade makes us go. I mean, that's so. It's a risk reward. That's the thing in Henderson County. I mean, that quarterback is outstanding. He squats 500 pounds or 600 pounds, but if you run him 20 or 30 times a game, it's a risk reward.
Catch up with.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
And I guess the last thing I saw that jumped out, because we hadn't really talked about their defense, was they had what,
4
interceptions last week, and then 5 counting the first week. Was it more just bad choices?
Well, no, I think they're the Board kid plays back there, and they've got some really good defenders. I mean, they're athletic. So that's another thing. They play a lot of man. So we're gonna have to get in our routes.
Yeah.
We can't slop around and because it's easy to play man when you don't run your routes hard. The other thing is, if kids are savvy enough to pick up on it, when a guy dogs it off the ball, it's probably either a pass the opposite way or it's a run. So you can kind of read receivers. That's what we try to tell our receivers. I know sometimes they're trying to save themselves for but the problem is that just defensive backs know.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm pressing hard. We're going to throw it. It's a kind of common sense type thing. So, their secondary is really good. They're a 4-2, but we think they're going to be a 4-2 base defense. They're either going to be a 4-2 or 3-3 stack. There's still 6 guys in the box, no matter how and at this point, Chad, there's only so many defenses you can run. It's either an odd base front or it's an even.
Yeah.
And now the stunt, and we've seen a ton of stunts. So we've probably seen about every stunt. With the way Henderson County looped and did dance, they did everything. And I thought for the most part, our kids did a pretty good job. Our front did a good job handling it. I thought our front did a good job. So teams will see what everybody watches films. Teams will see what Henderson did, and they'll try to mimic that as far as loop stunts and this and that. And Apollo's a very good football team, and like you said, you got to really take that loss to Ocath with a grain of salt, because Ocath will probably potentially can go 15-0. I think they could, win the state championship. So I think Ocath, they could, and I don't know much about Owensboro and Davies County, but who knows? Ocath may run the table down there in that city too, in that county, because they're very good. They're well coached, and obviously they got a Mr. Football. I tell you what, we've seen already. We've seen some outstanding quarterbacks, and we're just 3 games into the season. Now, one of those was a scrimmage, but golly, I can't. The evolution of the quarterback in high school football is that it's no longer a game manager hand it off and in 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's RPO, spread it out, chuck it around, everything. So who knows? I'd say before long they're probably going to get that headset that goes in there for the coach. Coach can talk to them.
Yeah, it may be a blessing or a curse.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So.
But what time is the game, since it's Central Time?
The game is at 8:00 Eastern.
Our time.
Yeah, our time.
Okay.
7:00 Central. We usually try to do that. So, I think it's going to be a beautiful night. And I was talking to Cletus yesterday. I said I felt like I'm giving a plug for the Owensboro Chamber of Commerce. I'm telling people to come out and go down there and get them some barbecue.
I hear they got some pretty decent barbecue.
Yeah, Owensboro is a nice town. In fact, my wife and I, during the off season, we'll try to go down there, and they got a couple of nice hotels on the river down there. There's a lot of stuff to do, but it's a nice town. Be a good night to, it's not that bad a drive down there, and hopefully they'll come down there and see a good high school football game.
Yeah. So y'all, you heard it. Why not head down there, 8:00 our time, stop in, get you some good barbecue. There's several different places to choose from, and let's root these GreenWaves on to 2 in a row. Coach, we wish you the best of luck,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Y'all take care and get out there tomorrow night.